Good evening, welcome. Thank you all for coming. It's going to be a very exciting evening. It's the fifth visit of Stories Around the Table, and tonight's theme is Elegies and Confessions. Karen Ludwig is the guiding light of the writing group. She began a writing group back in the 80s, and this current group has been able to continue to work despite the pandemic via Zoom, of course. Allow me to introduce Karen Ludwig, Joyce Aaron, Nancy Gabor, Joan Hall, Christina Maley, and Diane Spodarek. Let's welcome them.
By the time we sit down, it'll be over. Hi, everybody. Let me get my notes here. Oh, if you can't hear, please tell us, just yell out, okay? We really want to be heard, obviously. That's why we're here.
Mask off.
What? Oh, mask off. My mask will be off. I started a group in the 80s with a bunch of women. We were all worried about aging. We were in our 40s. So I said, let's all get together and write about it. And so we would meet once a week at Shami Shagan's apartment in Issue. And we would write, I would give a prompt, and we would read to each other. And so we kept on going. And what do I want to say now? Oh yes, so I would give a prompt every week. And like a prompt would be falling in love. Now it would be falling. So here's a prompt that I think is wonderful. My neighborhood.
Oh,
Does anybody?
I have a piece on my neighborhood.
Fabulous. Would you like to read it to us?
I certainly would, Karen.
All right.
Okay. My neighborhood. The last customer at the flea market sale in Westbeth said, "I love the sale. I love this building. I've been coming for years. Westbeth is the last bastion of the West Village. Thank goodness for Westbeth and its house full of lefties." I thought this description of my home was very flattering. The last of the old lefties. When I moved to Westbeth almost 50 years ago, we were practically the only building where people lived on West Street. The neighborhood stopped at Washington, where the small, beautiful old brownstones had remained for decades. These were the homes of writers and artists who were able to maintain a bohemian lifestyle because the rents were cheap and their friends lived nearby or close enough to share a drink, a joint, and a meal. Most of these old-timers are gone now, their houses completely gutted, rebuilt, and sold to wealthy fashion designers, actors, Google techies, and Wall Street brokers. Walking down the tree-filled streets of Jane and Horatio used to be a lovely stroll. Now the construction sounds of drills, jackhammers, and large tractors breaking down concrete and throwing away the remnants of the lives of previous tenants not only intrude on a previous solitary stroll, but also bombard one with a cacophony of screeching, banging, and ear-splitting noise. Block after block, the destruction of a culture is happening, with very little attention paid to it. I feel sad as I pass house after house in transformation. When we moved into Westbeth, there was a beautiful river view. Now it's blocked by a related apartment house, completed about 10 years ago. When Sandy hit, that building was evacuated, and it took 6 months before the residents were allowed to return because the infrastructure was destroyed. No water, heat, or power. The going price now to buy an apartment is millions of dollars. No lights in that building, and when they finally came on, only a couple of windows lit up showing that someone had returned. During the months of the pandemic, I was able to power walk up and down Greenwich and Washington Street without worrying about cars hitting me. It was great to have those empty streets, but I've discovered something better. In the morning, I drink a cup of coffee, put on my sneakers, and grab my phone. Putting my mask on as I walk out the door, I put on 60s and 70s music on Pandora radio and begin my power walk in the 6th floor hallway. Often I sing or hum along with the music, rock and rollin' for about an hour and a half. Oh no, half an hour. Westbeth is not only my home, it's my gym. Startled neighbors get a kick out of seeing me moving to the music and offer a thumbs up. My neighborhood has changed in the last half-century, but my home remains the same.
The lights, we want them off in the audience.
Over here.
Are they off?
Parvis, where you are.
Which one? This one?
Parvis, where Parvis is.
We want you to get a little more atmosphere. Diane,
Yes.
how's your father?
Oh, he's great. He's going to be 100 years old in a few months.
God love him. Do you have anything more to say about him?
Yeah, I do.
Great.
My father and the firemen. I lifted a wood ladder from the rusted 6-inch nails inside the shed my father built in the 1950s and breathed in familiar smells of summers past: oil, grease, gasoline, mold. Mosquitoes and black fly bites covered my arms and legs, connecting to each other by blood smears, creating a ragged constellation of itchy red welts. I opened the wobbly ladder under the cottage eaves troughs. My father's neighbor, a fireman, walked across the lawn with a shiny aluminum ladder under his arm. A telescopic model, it could safely balance on uneven surfaces. I climbed up and sunk my hand into rotting leaves, growing mint, and slimy debris. The fireman said, "Get down, I'll finish it for you." I stepped down, missed the last step, and fell backwards into my 99-year-old father and the fireman. Their arms reached out, their hands grabbed me, holding me up, rescuing me from hitting the concrete rocks. My father said, "You don't know how to use a ladder." I said, "I only missed the last step." "Right," my father said, "you don't know how to use a ladder." Face flushed, I went inside the cottage with their clutching and grabbing hands lingering on my flesh, one on my breast. I wasn't sure whose hand, and I didn't want to know.
Dorothy, do you have something about your father's coat?
Oh,
I remember something you said about your father's coat and Sam Shepard.
yeah. Well, I was living with Sam Shepard for about 5 years. And
Louder.
I was living with Sam Shepard for about 5 years. And I was performing in America Hurrah at the Pocket Theater. And it was a Sunday night. And someone came backstage and said, "Joyce, your father died." I was very close to my father and I was very stunned. And I had to go back on stage. And I was just, I don't know, I was in another world, but I continued. I mean, I did what I had to do. And the next day, we had to go to the funeral. So I said, so Sam, what are you going to wear to my father's funeral? He said, my jacket, my leather jacket. I said, you cannot go to my father's funeral in a leather jacket. He said, well then my jeans jacket. I have a jeans jacket, I have a leather jacket, Joyce, that's what I have. Fuck you, Sam, that's not what I'm saying. You cannot go to my father's funeral in a jeans jacket or a leather jacket. That's it. Joyce, you're being crazy. You're just being foolish. You're being dumb. You're being dumb. Okay, I'm dumb. So, I said, okay. What are we going to do now, Sam? What are we going to do? So my mother came in and she said, Sam, what are you going to wear to the funeral? He said, I have a jeans jacket and I have a leather jacket. And Joyce says, neither one is good, so I don't know. That's what I have, a jeans jacket and a leather. My mother said, it's okay, Sam, it's okay. We'll figure out something to do. So my mother comes out with a jacket and she said, Sam, you can wear one of these jackets. He said, I'm going to go to the funeral and wear a dead man's jacket. She said, yes, you're going to go and wear a dead man's jacket because that's what we have for you, a dead man's jacket. And so he wore it. That's it.
You know, Joan, I feel a poem coming on. Yes. I have something a little different, a recipe. This is called a recipe. A recipe. I have a recipe. And this is a recipe for love. So to create a recipe for love, I took some stars from the sky above. I then added a pinch of bliss, for good measure, a tender kiss. To this, the innocence of a prom corsage, plus the contentment of a great massage. What else to add? This can't be wrong, the gentle breath of a baby just born. Of course, it needs a master's art, a Rembrandt painting that moves my heart. Combine the feeling of a warm summer rain with a saxophone solo by Coltrane. Mix in the care of a dear friend, a sprinkle of rosebuds to the blend. For loyalty, a golden ring. I didn't want to miss a thing. To make perfect my cuisine, the fragrance of a meadow, lush and green. Well, I followed the recipe, but I had this feeling in my gut. Though still romantic, I can see that this was not the dish for me. Joycey, in your refrigerator,
Yeah,
which is full of food, right?
right,
Which I love.
right.
What kind of food do you have in your refrigerator?
Well, I have to picture it.
Powder.
I have to picture it. I have roast beef, ketchup, milk, chocolate milk, butter, cream cheese, rye bread, peanut butter, jam, strawberry jam twice. I have mustard, pickles, chicken barbecued, ready to eat, mayonnaise, more mustard, more mayonnaise, more ketchup, more jam, eggs, 2 dozen. I'm one person. 2 dozen. Butter, margarine. milk, 2% milk, 2% milk, full milk, chocolate milk, chocolate milk.
I think you forgot the pickles.
Pickles and mustard.
Yeah, okay. Um, Well, I wrote a piece called Stinkin' Thinkin'. Sarah's mother, my mother-in-law, Freddie, told me about the time she was in school and she had to do a report on Lincoln Steffens, the American journalist. And she was so nervous when she had to stand in front of the class and deliver the paper, she took a deep breath and said, "This is a report on Stinkin' Leffen." And the class tittered, and she was only 5'1", and she raised herself up and she cleared her throat again and attempted, "I mean, this is about Stinkin' Leffen." And then finally, Lincoln Steffen. But this little story brings me to one of the prompts, Stinkin' Thinkin'. I do a lot of it. I'm not really generous. I should have given to charities. There isn't a creative bone in my body. I have nothing to say. My students haven't learned enough from me because I'm too scattered. My face looks sad and old. The Parkinson's will get worse and I'll end up moving my body like Michael J. Fox. I have nothing of value to say. If I start something, I probably won't finish it. My mind keeps getting smaller and my need to be praised bigger. I'm turning into a totally dependent person. My sense of humor has found another home. Oh God, where, oh where? Where, oh where did it go? Oh, I know. It's still wandering around in the middle of my gut and fighting to stay warm amidst the iceberg of reality. You're old! Yes, but everyone's older since the pandemic. I know. Peter Pan sings, think lovely thoughts. But all I can think of right now is 10 p.m. when I can climb into bed with my Kindle and read my Marlon Brando book. You know, Nancy, I forgot to tell you, I got this new blouse, and it has a zipper, and I fucked it up. I don't know what happened. I tore the blouse. My zipper, it drives me crazy.
Can't hear you.
My zipper got stuck on my new blouse, and I think I tore it.
Well, Karen,
Yeah,
there's hope.
there is.
I have a piece.
About a zipper? Fabulous.
My big purple down coat is having a zipper issue. I love that coat. I bought it in the boutique section of the store that was Marshall's before it was Marshall. So it wasn't the store that was TJ Maxx before it was TJ Maxx. I can't quite remember because it's at least 10 years old. It cost $125, reduced from $400, and it's a DKNY. It was too big when I bought it, but it fits me now. Perhaps that's because it was 10 years ago and 10 pounds. A few weeks ago, that zipper started getting stuck in the same place every time I wear it. It's annoying, but I managed to fix it after some patience and multiple tugs. An incident happened recently that made me think about getting the zipper replaced. I was with my husband and we were meeting some friends for dinner. We were running a little late and I had thrown my coat around my shoulders and was trying to put it on without getting the long scarf stuck caught in the zipper as we walked down the hallway. About a quarter of the way up, it got stuck and I couldn't make it go further. Paul got down on one knee in the hallway and gently tugged. Then he pulled it down and started all over again, all the time on one knee. It was touching. If we were not already married, he might have been proposing. He looked at it closely, his eyes not being what they used to be, and then voila, the zipper traveled smoothly without a hitch all the way up to my neck. I loved him so much in that moment that if we were not already married, I would have proposed to him.
Joan, I feel a poem coming on.
This is a poem called Shameful Pleasure. I was just a little child, but my behavior was quite wild. Once, in kindergarten during recess, I had an urge I couldn't suppress. The feeling that came over me was the need to really pee. I took my place in the bathroom line, but sadly the last spot was mine, and the line moved at a painful pace. How I wish I had first place. The need to pee got even stronger. I couldn't hold it in much longer. With shameful pleasure, I let loose. My poor bladder had no excuse. I peed until there was no more and made a puddle on the floor. Well, the teacher saw the ground was wet. I feared the punishment I'd get. Then I thought of an idea, loud enough for all to hear. She did it, I exclaimed, as the girl ahead I blamed. How clever, I thought, to deny. But sadly, she began to cry. I felt sorry for the lass until the teacher felt my ass. Of course, my bottom was quite wet. I feared the punishment I'd get. The teacher I could not outwit. I did it, I must admit. My little eye was so unwise, and then I had to apologize. That poor girl surely felt elation upon seeing my humiliation. I knew, along with my confession, that I had learned a shameful lesson.
You want to talk humiliation? I have a story. This is a true story. I was about 5 years old and I was having a little tea party with friends over, and my mother said to me, if you have to go to the bathroom, go now, because when they come you don't want to have to go to the bathroom. So are you sure you don't have to go? I don't have to go, Mommy. Are you sure? I don't have to go. The doorbell rang and I peed in my pants. And my mother took off my pants, this is what they did in those days, and hung it around one of those, hoop skirt wires around my neck. And I had to answer the door that way. With my pants around my neck. You think it hasn't affected my life? True story. My mother had to do the laundry.
Oh, is that my cue?
Yes, it is.
We practice this, so. We didn't practice it that well. Okay. Even though I have lived longer than Jesus and have had a lot more terrifying experiences than he ever had, we do have one or two things in common. The first thing being that I, as a woman, have been crucified by mankind countless times over one thing or another, while he could count being crucified on one finger. And then, of course, there is doing the laundry. Of course, he self-importantly calls it washing away the sins of the world. Still, my grandmother loved Jesus best, singing his praises as she went about her never-ending chores keeping house. In my childhood home, everyone's dirty laundry was deposited in a wide armchair in the corner of the dining room. When it filled up, my grandmother would gather it in her arms and dump it in the kitchen sink, washing everything by hand using shavings of brown soap before putting the clothes into a hand-powered wringer that squeezed the water out. Outside the kitchen window was a clothesline that tied to a tree that magically stood in the exact right place of the backyard. And at the other end, my grandmother hanging things up one by one, the sound of the tiny creak of the clothesline pulley. The underwear flapped in the wind like countries on a map. My grandmother's underwear was white and wide like Antarctica. My mother's hung like Australia with a pink filigree. My father's was a dark gray cloud. And then came the underwear of the 7 kids, my sisters and brothers, in various sizes and colors, like islands in the Caribbean. In addition to the pants and shirts, there was one other thing that she hung. Brown-stained cotton rags, which I called the maps of the Sahara, and which years later I discovered were the remnants of my mother's monthly period. All of this meant that when I went away to a Midwestern college, I knew a lot about geography, but very little about laundry. My roommate, who grew up in a small town, took me to the dormitory's basement, where the washing machine and the dryer floated like two icebergs in the creepy gray light. To hide my amazement that these things existed, I told her that in New York City, we had machines that folded clothes automatically. Sometimes in exchange for stories about life in the city, she folded my laundry, but it didn't last. In our sophomore year, she found Jesus and left school. I was very lucky that a couple of weeks later, I got married, wearing the very last of my clean clothes. My new husband, in the throes of being married for the first time, volunteered to do the laundry, leaving me to check the pockets for dollar bills and half-smoked joints. But nothing lasts. At first, doing my children's laundry was like playing in a dollhouse. Everything was so tiny and cute. But if you keep feeding kids, they grow. Every day, their clothes got bigger and dirtier. By then, I had a full-time job, was between husbands or lovers, and was trying to write. I was constantly tired. My life was like one long lost sock. But one time, when I went down to the laundry room of my building, I found that someone had taken my clothes out of the dryer and had folded them. Thank you, Jesus, thank you, Jesus, thank you, Jesus. But it never happened again, though I left clothes abandoned in the dryer like a million times. Now the days seem to have grown shorter, the years move more swiftly away. The kids have left, and I have lost interest in doing a lot of activities that require getting dressed. It takes weeks for me to fill up a laundry bag. Sometimes I think about the progression of clothes that for all these years were touched by my hands as I sorted the laundry. My sons, my husbands, the occasional lover, their dreams, their presence were so fully lived inside those vanished clothing. So many continents of memory that I washed away into the sea. Sometimes I think about my grandmother standing at that cracked kitchen sink, scrubbing endlessly at the clothes on her washboard, the sudsy water churning like the clouds that angels tread upon, like those clouds that would one day part before her to reveal to her the gates of heaven, and Jesus, whom she loved so dearly, standing there, his arms outstretched, taking her careworn and wrinkled hands into his. Come, my child, he said, come and rest.
This reminds me of the story of Shami. Shami was brought up in Des Moines, Iowa. They were the only Jews there, I think. And her mother was invited to a neighbor's house for dinner, and she was so excited to go, so excited. And they went over, and they came into this living room, and the mother was saying, Shami's mother, oh, this is so beautiful. Your house is so beautiful. Oh, that picture, is that your daughter? And the woman said, no, that's our Lord Jesus Christ. Shami's mother said, oh, I didn't recognize him without the beard. Laundry. Well, I wonder how we're going to get to this. But my black and white socks are always missing.
That's
when I
how
go to
we're
the
gonna-
laundry,
yeah,
and I would
that's
get
it.
one sock that's either black and white. Well, it is black and white. There's no other sock that's black and white.
I know where we're going.
Where are we going?
We're going to Wonder Cat.
Wonder Cat. Wonderful.
You're sleeping now, finally. After you jumped down from the kitchen windowsill where you stretched out in the morning sun, and then kicked your dry food on the floor. Okay. You calmed down and relaxed on the couch next to me. You're snoring now. Little spurts of sound that show how happy you are to finally be asleep after a busy morning. You wake me up by putting a white-tipped paw on my cheek. Opening my eyes, I stare into your big green eyes, which seem to suck me in, saying, feed me, feed me. Dragging myself out of bed, I have to be careful not to trip on you as you wrap yourself around my legs. After giving you a handful of food, I go back to bed, and you jump onto the bed and then onto my chest, nudging me with your head again, staring at me, and then the purring begins. I love it as you slowly inch up my body until you are resting on my chest, and then you place your paw on my face and give me small licks, confirming that you are the most special cat in the whole world, and my little lover. You are a tuxedo cat, a black and white face mask with a spot of black on your nose and a black beard under your chin that makes you look as if you're always smiling. You understand everything I say to you. You have evolved from a rather ferocious street cat to a gentle soul who shows interest in everything from guests to watching the water in the sink drip and the broom sweeping your kitty litter away on the floor. I watch you as you stretch. You make the yoga cat stretch look so beautiful. And then you wrap your head around your back legs and begin the continuous activity of bathing yourself. This seems like a private moment. It's so intimate and intense, even though you do it at least 4 times a day. After you finish your bath, you go to sleep, curling up in a black and white ball on the couch with the pink flesh of your inner toes exposed. You greet me when I come home after being away for a few hours. Nobody's ever been so happy to see me. You are my little wonder cat.
Joyce,
Yeah,
you have a little doggie
I do.
named Tristan.
I do.
Would you like to tell us about Tristan?
Well, Tristan is psychologically aware. And he is extremely psychic. And if I'm sitting in the chair thinking about food, he walks to the refrigerator and sits down. So we have a relationship that we don't need words. And he has become my mate. And at night, when I go to sleep and I'm on my side, Tristan curls around and he makes sure that he touches my back with his back, just like a man would do, without the leg, you know. And I've become very aware that he is my soulmate, my lover. I mean, he's my lover. I mean, he's my friend. And he reads my mind. And he makes me very happy. And I realize that he fills up my space with a lot of love and a lot of excitement, because he gets very excited. I mean, if he hears a little horn, he gets excited. If he hears somebody in the hallway, woof, 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 he gets very, very excited. If I move my chair and he's been sleeping, whoops, he's very, very excited. And so he's very, very present, which makes me much less lonely because I'm alone. And therefore, he's my, well, he takes care of me and he makes me feel less alone, and he makes me feel very loved and very wanted, and he makes me feel happy, and, well, suddenly my dog is my soulmate.
Joan. Yes, well, I was about to make well, I forgot the word. This is the way it is now. Everything's like charades. Sounds like, I was going to make a
Transition.
what?
Transition.
Thank you. A transition to Joan. I was going to say something about the rain. It's been fabulous.
Yes,
Everything's so green.
but before it rains, there's a poem about the garden fighting.
Oh, would you like to?
Yes. This, I don't have pets, but I have plants. So this is about my garden. Veggies, fruits, and flowers had a fighting match over which would occupy the little garden patch. The rose declared, if I had my way, the flowers would be here to stay. Kale retorted, you silly goose, This garden should be just produce. Indeed, agreed the squash and a potato. Count me in, said one tomato. Absolutely, blurted some beans. This garden should be only greens. Together pleaded all the peas. No more flowers, if you please. Cried the onion now in tears. You flowers have been here for years. Bring it on, you want to grapple? Challenged the sour, wormy apple. But we blooms must take a stand. This little garden is our land. We shall fight, create a spectacle, declared a rebellious vegetable. Get ready for a fighting match over this small garden patch. Stated the veggies to the flowers. We don't care if it takes hours. A decision we will reach. Said the violet to a peach. In the end, come what may, we flowers, we are here to stay. You won't, let's fight, screamed the scallion into the night. Will the struggle ever end? Which group would be the first to bend? The resolution we'll never know, because by morning they froze in the snow. And speaking of weather, when I heard the rain. Well, I was about to take a walk when I heard the rain, so I turned the TV on instead. My annoyance, I'll explain. The commercials that are aired seem always dumb and dumber. Now whenever I see one, it's bound to be a bummer. Like the insurance company guy behind a food stand, selling a wet teddy bear that he's holding in his hand. And teenage men in their 70s, in the Ozarks, guzzling beer. It seems like all the ads get worse year by year. Well, I think it's just here in the USA. Commercials from abroad are so much better, I must say. With them, I'm never bored. Like one ad in a supermarket. I felt sorry for the father because his kid was having a tantrum and was really quite a bother. I want bonbons, he screamed as he tore apart everything handy. This ad had a brilliant theme. You'd think it was for candy. But what it was, you'd never dream. An ad for a condom, thought up by a European team and very far from done. The American corporations are selling to the masses with very low IQs and their heads up their asses. So now it's mainly Netflix and perhaps PBS. Because of those commercials, I'm watching prime time less.
Diane,
Yes,
how is your father?
he's great. He's great.
Does he have somebody who takes care of him?
No, I killed her.
Okay.
I wrote about it.
Oh, we'd love to hear it.
Here comes Boom Boom. I'm at a small cabin in the woods, enjoying a bottle of Crown Royal. Just Crown for those in the know. Plotting ways to get rid of Boom Boom. A non-stop talking, gum-chewing, fat-ass, gum-cracking loudmouth my father hired to take care of my mother so he could play tennis. Despite her dementia, my mother used a walker, fed herself, and played the piano. Under Boom Boom's watch, my mother fell and broke her hip. I wanted to kill her. I hear critters outside the cabin, rummaging through the dead leaves, rabbits, mice, bear, and deer. I can see a bear maul Boom Boom. Its sharp claws shredding her flesh and clothes into ragged strips. Its mammoth jaw dragging her through the woods, leaving blood-soaked streaks in the ground. Her screams fading into the woods. Boom Boom shows off her augmented assets in Disney t-shirts a size too small, with tight leggings, with a disconcerting crotch, if you know what I mean. Come winter, I can see Boom Boom tramping through deep snow in high-heel boots with bells and tassels, her breath penetrating the piercing icy air. Birds scatter from the trees a microsecond before a shotgun blast tears into her gut. She falls backwards. Her blood seeps slowly on virgin snow. I want to kill Boom Boom. She humiliates my mother. "Did you poop in your diaper?" she says. I try to school her on how to talk to people with dementia, but she still calls my mother's breasts puppies. She's touchy-feely with my father and doesn't try to hide it from my mother. She wears red bows in her dyed red hair. I could see a big red bow in Boom Boom's hair under the Rockefeller Christmas tree. People point and shout, TV cameras sprout like mushrooms. Reporters debate, what is that? Is it real? No, it can't be. It looks real. It's real, all right. Don't be an idiot. I must kill Boom Boom to protect my mother. She gives my father daily reports. One day when I was visiting, she said to my father, I didn't make her breakfast because she said she wasn't hungry. She wouldn't let me change her diaper, so she's stinky. The sheets are wet, and she refused to take her meds. Han. I said, don't forget that you threw my mother's pills at her face and said, fuck you. But Boom Boom protested. That's because she wouldn't take them. In the cabin, the chainsaw is under the gun rack. Does it need petrol? It has a pull handle like a lawnmower. I can handle that. But its beastly sound scares the birds and reminds me of grisly horror movies. I cross out chainsaw. Then I write it in again. Sorry, birds. With each visit to my parents' home, Boom Boom brings a toad knick-knack. Toads are everywhere, all colors, all sizes and shapes, some playing the banjo. Hey, what's with all the toads? I asked Boom Boom. I'm a frog collector, she said. She pounces on the box of eclairs on the kitchen table and bites into the soft pastry. Yellow cream, not unlike the color of pus, oozes out the sides of her red lipstick mouth. I can see my mother's morphine syringe shoot a deadly substance into the pastry cream. But what substance? Antifreeze, morphine, rat poison. Is arsenic still available? After my mother's memorial, I asked Boom Boom, why are you here in my father's house? Your father doesn't want to be alone, she said. I said I'm arranging assisted living. Boom Boom said I already gave up my trailer. Your stuff is in the garage. You have a very strange taste in shoes. I dropped the white box of eclairs on the table. Ooh, can I have one, she says, between her gum cracking. Sure, I said. Your father doesn't like them. I know, have two.
Christina. Hi, Christina.
Hi.
Hi. Do you have something
Yes.
about COVID?
About COVID, yes, I do. Thank you for
Would you like to
asking.
read it?
Yes, I will.
Wonderful.
I met Godzilla at a Feldenkrais Zoom class. The pandemic had stranded him in Tokyo Bay, so he finally had time to work on his dorsal fins. I had always avoided his type. Taller than the Empire State Building, red beady eyes, 100-ton tail. But COVID had made the unthinkable possible, and before I could unthink the unthinkable, I clicked on the personal Zoom link he sent me. On screen, Godzilla didn't look much different than any other blind date, including a huge dose of narcissism, which I later realized masked his nervousness. He told me he had once been a tiny iguana, nibbling on the bittersweet skin of a mango when a nuclear test flew him into the deepest part of the ocean, rearranging his atoms, forcing him to become a gigantic being full of destruction and hate. I told him I was born in Brooklyn and had gone to Catholic grammar school. He nodded in understanding. I know how you feel, he said. After his extended rant about never getting an Oscar for lifetime achievement, we talked for hours. Whenever Godzilla revealed something sad about his life, like the time his mother was killed when an airplane he swatted away crashed on the island of his birth, flames would suddenly burst from his mouth to dry the tears that coursed like rivers down the valleys of his face. Although I myself was not a radioactive amphibian, I found myself drawn to him. When I told him that because of COVID, I ate so many potato chips I could have rebuilt the entire lost civilization of Atlantis with them, Godzilla said he only had to look at an undefended city to gain 20 tons. When I told him that the isolation of the pandemic had forced me to acknowledge an emptiness, a loneliness, a weakness inside me that made me afraid and which I could no longer ignore, I know, Godzilla soothed. Sometimes I miss smashing cities so much I have to hit myself with my tail just to feel something. I had never met an amphibian who understood me so completely, who could so easily pin the tail of truth onto the donkey of enlightenment. I am attacked constantly, he continued. Everywhere I go, everyone knows exactly where I am. I cannot hide, I cannot fight back. I wish I could help you, I said. I have a plan, Godzilla replied. The last thing I saw was Godzilla's smile, which opened like a curtain, revealing the city of his teeth. Then suddenly, his immense troubled body exploded into a nuclear mushroom of flames and smoke, melting the Zoom screen between us. The swampy last breath of his being swarmed into my nostrils, into my lungs, into my brain. I fell into an oceanic bliss of darkness as needles of Godzilla's radioactive particles burned through my skin, heat-seeking every organ and muscle, welding themselves to every cell of my body. Was it hours or days later when I awoke, filled with a new strength of purpose, a taste for vengeance, and a yearning for the bittersweet skin of mangoes? On the outside, as you see, I look exactly the same, except for the glasses which I have taken to wearing to protect the redness in my eyes. Other than that, nobody suspects how I have learned to dry my tears.
COVID, does that speak to anybody?
Yeah, okay. I have a poem. This is COVID-19. Now that the city that never sleeps is comatose, the COVID-19 quarantine isolates us in our cubicles. We busy ourselves to suppress quiet hysteria, but I can see a positive side. I can see peace coming out of panic. The enemies of the world are sharing this fight with a mutual focus of healing, sharing secrets towards the same cause. We are fighting a war together with a microscopic foe. Instead of sending men to battle in trenches, we are sent to our TVs and couches. We are not invading borders, but instead shutting doors, complacent in comfort, solitude, and safety. Wars were fought with weapons that affect our bodies with violent harm. This war is fought with soap and water, perpetual physical cleansing and never a touch. Our affection is given in virtual likes instead of hugs. It is the same in every country. We are all bonded by this war.
The word overwhelmed came up in our group meetings. Such a big word, overwhelmed. It was overwhelming. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yes, I do. It was overwhelming. My mother broke her hip and stayed in rehab facility for 30 days. Her doctor said time for hospice. My father said no, I'm taking her home. It was overwhelming. My father wrapped rosary beads around my mother's fingers and folded her hands into his. I love you, honey. Come back to me. He had hope. Despite in-home hospice, despite the feeding tube, despite end-stage dementia, despite morphine. It was overwhelming to see my father sleeping in a chair next to my mother's hospital bed in the living room. Her cries pierced the stillness of the night. I slipped the morphine syringe into the side of her cheek. I was afraid it wasn't enough. I was afraid it was too much. I was overwhelmed. Miss Tracy, a favorite aide, kept my mother dry, her lips moist and her dentures clean. She played music and sang to my mother until her car broke down permanently. My father offered Tracy my mother's car. It's in decent shape, except for the air conditioning, he said. When she didn't respond, he said, I'm not selling it, I'm giving it to you. She burst into tears and named the car Miss Betty. It was overwhelming. Mornings we washed and covered my mother with warm towels. My father said, come back to me, my beautiful wife. We had 75 years. We can have more. I was overwhelmed. I held her hand until it turned cold. The hospice nurse listened to my mother's heart with her stethoscope. She said it's time to call the funeral home. My father was in the den praying. Dad, I said, it's time to call the funeral home. My father said, what for?
Shami. She had a voice like maple syrup. When she sang, the world stopped and listened. Her eyes were brown and deep and full of love, but they could narrow you down to a splinter if she disliked you. I don't remember how it is that she was in my apartment on 12th Street, the one with no kitchen sink. But we kissed quickly, and she blurted out, I'm 36! As if she had typhoid. And then she ran out the door. I was 24 or something. I followed her to her sister Molly's house on Waverly and waited at the bottom of the stairs since she had disappeared inside the house. She came out right away and she said again, I'm 36! And I said, so what? And we began our romance, which was on and off for at least 5 years. I lived in her one-room West Beth apartment for 6 months, and Susan Sontag visited and said incredulously, you live here together? Yes, we did, and there was plenty of room. Shami was a black belt in Aikido, She was incredibly disciplined about her body. We used to lie naked on a blanket in the hills of Charlemont, Jean-Claude Van Natale's home, and we would drop acid, and soon Jean-Claude and Joe, her brother, would join us, and we'd tell stories and read Buddhist philosophy. Shami and I wrote a play called Stray Dog on a blanket in the hills. But it was her singing that would capture you and wrap you up in the loveliest, silkiest blanket. Her voice, inside me. Every day in some way I hear her. Are you all right, Carrot? She was hit by a truck in 2009, and as she lay in the ER at St. Vincent's unconscious, we played a CD of her singing, and the surgeon came in and he stood stock still and wept. I hope she will sing again, he said. She did. Her ashes are under the thundercloud plum tree at the lake. I hear her voice. Carrot, are you coming to see me? Thank you very much. I don't have any cookies. Sorry. But if you'd like to stay and ask us questions about the work or anything, we'd love to have you. You don't have to. I think Judge Judy is on at what time? Turn on the house lights, if you will, please. Yes, I recognize you.
Yes, so how often do you ladies get together?
Well, we haven't in a while.
Really?
But we try to get together every week when we're chugging along.
Right.
Well, we meet on Zoom.
We've been meeting on
You
Zoom.
moved into Zoom?
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you for coming.